So thanks for joining us this evening. This is webinar number 4. We're talking about marketing through adversity this evening. Really, I think one of the challenges for us all in what is quite a different landscape for sports medicine and physiotherapy is for us to consider how we're going to ensure that we still have patients. You know, most of us work heavily in sport, and sport essentially has finished for a period of time. So what is it that we're going to do to keep ourselves busy? How do we make sure that we still have patients coming through the door? And that's essentially what we're trying to talk about tonight. We are working on some webinars for next week. We're going to do one on the shoulder, which is confirmed, one on prescribing exercise, which is almost confirmed. And just a reminder, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we're going to do a review of the week and share some ideas about how to do telehealth and what we've learned from what for most practices is their first full week of doing telehealth. So those are things to keep an eye out for. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Simon Grigor. Simon works for Volom. I think I might leave it to Simon to tell us a little bit about who he is and what Volom is and why we've invited him on tonight. So thanks for joining us, Simon. Maybe you could start by just telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, Simon Grigor. I work for a company called Volom, and we specialise in working with small businesses. So we are effectively an outsourced marketing department for a number of small businesses, and I work with Access and a number of other kind of health aligned businesses, as well as some other small businesses. And we help them take care of all of their marketing needs. So we can do websites, run AdWords campaigns, we can develop collateral, film videos, all sorts of things. So anything that you might need, that's what we do.
Great. So look, I guess there's been a lot that's changed over the past, well, I guess 7 days, but you know, over the last couple of weeks, certainly not just in the sports medicine industry. I guess what are you seeing, and what are the conversations you're having with your various clients? I guess in the health landscape, but also across all of industry.
Yeah, look, the conversations are quite varied, but to be honest, I haven't spoken to anyone who isn't nervous or isn't doing it tough or isn't kind of looking out into the distance and wondering, wow, what's this going to look like in 4 weeks and 6 weeks and 6 months? So this is a collective thing for all New Zealanders, obviously, and in fact for the whole world. So everyone's experiencing this. So one thing I'd say is, like, don't be afraid to share your problems and learn and get ideas from others. Like, there's a lot of other people out there kind of scratching their heads, going, what am I supposed to do? Like, I've never not been able to run my business, or now I have to run my business online. What does that actually mean? So I think we're really lucky in New Zealand that we have a real sense of community and a willingness to work together to help each other out. And so just be willing to kind of offer up your own opinions and be willing to kind of share and chat with other people. If you're worried about, say, sharing ideas with a local competitor, maybe looking at having conversations with other clinics across the country and share what's working, set up a Zoom call with 5 or 6 other clinics that you know, and just know you're not alone in this. So I've got other clients that are kind of doing the same thing, people that work in kind of relatively similar industries, just wondering what they're going to do. And they're just sharing ideas like, hey, this is working for us, maybe it could work for you. I think those that seem to be ahead of the game, I would say, are being proactive. So it's easy to kind of get into the situation and go, well, I can't do anything for 4 weeks, or this lockdown is going to be 8 weeks, and kind of just sit tight, try not to spend any money. But a lot of them are kind of exhibiting some really proactive behaviours. So the first one, obviously, a lot of people are rationalising what they're doing and firming up their businesses as best they can. But there are kind of 2 aspects, I think, that are most relevant to our conversation tonight. The businesses that I kind of look at and go, yeah, I think you're doing the right thing. They're looking for immediate opportunities in the current environment. So maybe they're focusing in the online space. They might be creating new products and services that work well in the current environment. And they're really trying to extract every ounce of value out of the customers that they have. So they're looking really hard at their business right now and going, what can we do right now that can kind of get an extra, for some of these businesses, it's about getting 1 or 2 extra pieces of work through the door. So. And then secondly, they're planning for what business might look like when we get back to something more normal. So it is like, while we have to spend a lot of time trying to make sure that we survive the next wee while, it's also an opportunity for some businesses to kind of reevaluate or just get on top of some of those tasks that you always thought you might do. So do some good business planning, or clear out your inbox, or those sorts of things.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are really good points. I don't know what people out there are currently planning for, but the advice we've had is to plan for this continuing for at least 6 months. So I think for those of you that might be thinking this is a 1-month problem, you may want to be thinking about reframing that. So what are some of the sort of very basic things that we should be all doing from a marketing point of view?
It's a good place to start, because I spent a bit of time over the past few days kind of sitting on Google and looking at various websites, and to be honest, very few clinics are saying anything about them still being open for business or that they're conducting consults online. There are some really good examples, some clinics are doing it. But if you do the basics, you're going to be a step ahead of so many of your competitors. So the first thing is, like, let your patients know that you're still operating, because many will assume you're not. I think many people basically assume that the supermarkets are open and that's about it. So put a message on your website, update Google My Business to say, can't come to the clinic, I am working online. Put something out on Facebook or LinkedIn. Update your phone line, just a little message on the phone line that reassures people that you're open. Have a little script for your reception staff if they're taking calls. Email patients with bookings, so people aren't no-shows, or they don't try to cancel or kind of shift their booking. And then call those that have cancelled, because I know for many of you there's probably been a week or so where you've been scrambling and a lot of people have kind of cancelled and you haven't managed to get back to them, but there's probably a good source of patients there that can be shuffled back in, and you can do a telehealth consult for them. But kind of on top of that is try to communicate this in a way that makes them feel confident about having consultations online, because I think a lot of people are like, hey, you can't come into the clinic, but we can do our consults online. And people are like, online? I can't see why would I see my doctor or my physio online? They can't touch my sore knee, which is what I presume is going to happen. So we need to make sure people understand that an online consultation on the whole is fine. So saying something like, well, we can't see you in the clinic at the moment, we can see you online so you can start your recovery, or while staying safely at home. Staying safely at home is probably a good message for a lot of people. A lot of people are a little bit nervous about getting out and about. And then start to talk about online consults still being really effective, that you can design home exercise programs to start their treatment, and that they're better off to start their rehabilitation now than kind of sit on it for 6 to 8 weeks or however long it's going to be, moan about your sore knee, and then by the time you do get seen, it's got significantly worse. And then lastly, I'd say, let your partners know that you're up and running. So who are your sources of referrals? Are other people referring to you? Do they know you're still operating? So don't let that dry up. And maybe look around you, talk to like the GP clinics around you that maybe you haven't talked to before, and maybe you can help them out. Like maybe they don't want to see injuries, musculoskeletal stuff. Maybe they are quite keen to shift a bit of that onto you right now. So
now might be a good time to let everybody know that we're open, do you think?
Yeah. Yes.
So, yeah. Silly gag. I've got 3 kids. I've got dad's gags coming all day long. So it's my top shelf material, that one. So you talk. I think we're all in the same boat with that, Simon. So we're all trying to show people that online consultations are good and useful. do you think there's an opportunity for us all as a group to go to the community and say online consultations are effective?
Yeah, I definitely think there is. I mean, there's kind of two opportunities there, right? There's that reassurance that online consultations can still be really effective, but it's a useful opportunity for you to go out to your local community or to your sports teams that you look after, or the rugby club down the road, or whoever, and just say, look, we're open, we do online consultations, and then talk to them about a number of you are probably still walking around with niggles, sore knees, sore elbows, sore wrists, sore back. You might have had a DIY incident. I mean, if my neighbourhood's anything like any of your neighbourhoods, it's just the saws and drills and paintbrushes out. People doing DIY all over the shop. So yeah, I think there's an opportunity to reassure people about these online consultations. And if you can get, say, a testimonial from someone saying, I was surprised, it was great. I'm now set up to go get an x-ray and I'll come back and do my follow-up in a week's time or whatever, then that does reassure people that this is still an option for them.
Okay, just a reminder to everyone that's out there that if you go down to the bottom of the screen, there is an opportunity to ask questions, and I'm sure Simon's more than happy to answer those. So click on the Q&A box and just type your question in there. Look, pretty much everything you've been talking about is talking about online or your presence on the internet. Look, I think the whole concept of telehealth, being online, that's currently the opportunity for most of us. How do you think we can take advantage of that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously great for consults. So if you're not on telehealth, you absolutely should be. But I'd look at other services that you offer and ask yourself, how can I do this online? And really challenge yourself on that. Because if I talk to a bunch of doctors and physios 3 months ago and said, hey, you could totally run your business online. You could sit on a yacht and do most of what you're doing now. Almost all of them would have said, nah, rubbish, you can never do that. But now that we've all been...
a yacht, actually, as well.
But now that we've all been forced to do this, I think people are actually discovering that it's totally feasible. So don't just limit yourself to consults. Look at everything else that you're offering. So personal training, Pilates classes, exercise programs. Just look at that and go, well, how could we put this online? How does that work? Do we charge for it? Do we charge less for it? Do we get more customers? Like, you're not limited by the size of your studio anymore for a Pilates class. You could have 200 people coming to you on a Tuesday night now. Or do you offer it for free? Is it like a goodwill gesture to your local community? I'm going to run a free Pilates class speed run on a Tuesday night. And does that give you an opportunity to then market yourself more broadly to the community? You kind of get to the end and say, still open for business, still doing online consultations, can see you for any of your injuries that you've got at the moment. So yeah, I think there's a really good opportunity there. Then I'd start thinking about other services that I could offer. What are some ideas you've always thought about but never started? Could they work online? And I'd look around. So look at others within your industry and see what they're doing. Who are normally kind of the leaders in innovative thinking? And so what are they doing? Could I do that? And don't be ashamed to beg, borrow, and steal. And lastly, I'd look at who you can market yourself to. So, as I said before, you're no longer limited by the size of your studio for your Pilates class. You're also not limited by the location of your clinic or the size of your studio. So your patients used to mainly live or work pretty close to your clinic, but now they could be anywhere. So you may choose to go national. You could dominate your own area. So as I said, you could run a Pilates class just for everyone in Timaru. Or you could target by interest group. You could say, well, I've got a real interest in trail running. And I see quite a few trail runners in my local area, but could I run a particular service for trail runners all over the country? Or could I look at life stages and go, well, I've done a bunch of stuff with new mothers. Could I develop a program for new mothers and look to market that across New Zealand?
Look, there've been quite a few questions come in about social media. So what sort of reach does social media have, and what other online marketing platforms or strategies are there is one of them. What platforms do you find effective to let people know that business is up and running? Other than your own website and social media, what other platforms would you advertise? So any sort of comments about the marketing channels that we've used, things that might be good, things that might be bad, things that maybe have dried up, those sorts of things.
Yeah, I think, look, Facebook's great. I mean, Facebook's got, out of all the social media platforms, got the broadest reach out of all of them, and you can throw Instagram in on top of that because they are Instagram. So you can get really broad reach, and they've got some amazing tools that allow you to target by geographic region, but you can also target by interest groups, or you can do things called lookalike audiences. So you can put all your patients in, you'll put all your Pilates patients in and go tell Facebook, create an audience of people that are similar to that, and then I can market to all of those people. So Facebook's a great one. I think you want to be doing the basics around Google. So updating Google My Business at the moment is probably pretty important. AdWords is great for intention. So people that are looking for a particular service. So especially around injuries or physio clinics that are open, that sort of thing. But I think at the moment there's also really interesting opportunities in the likes of radio. So there's going to be a lot of people stopping doing advertising and a lot of distressed media that they call it. And you might find some really good opportunities with local radio stations. They generally go through the big kind of radio networks. So you'd be working with NZME or Radio Works, but you can do some really effective radio advertising in some small locations. So they can target down to pretty small areas. You could target Timaru again, you could target Dunedin really effectively. So I'd be interested in looking at radio, but then also look at the assets that you've got yourself already. So what does your email list look like? Have you got email addresses for all your old patients? Well, now's probably a good time to start communicating with them, maybe giving them some tips on how they could stay healthy at home, keep fit at home, and then you can kind of slide in a few kind of messages around how you're still open and keen to see people if you've got an injury. And we're offering these classes if you're interested.
Yeah. So look, I mean, I'm not a big Facebooker, but how easy is it to advertise yourself on Facebook or to promote your posts and things there?
It's not, to be honest, it's not too difficult. I mean, you do have to spend a bit of time learning how it works. So I'd encourage anyone that's wanting to do it themselves to pick up a course. Facebook's got its own kind of training program that you can do to learn how to do that. It's probably not something that you can just open in a night and figure it all out. But
well, like running a webinar.
We've done pretty well this week, haven't we?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but you've probably got a friend who's been trying, who's been doing their own Facebook advertising for a while. So a friend might be able to give you a hand. Or if you're a larger organisation and you need some help, then reach out to your local marketing expert. They'd be more than happy to give you.
Okay, so here's a good Facebook-related question for you. Thanks, Rose. So in the past, I've boosted posts on Facebook, but despite putting in a specific target group, it seems to encourage a group of people that don't fit my target group at all. It seemed like a bit of a con from Facebook to spend your money. What's your experience on boosted posts?
It's really hard without looking at someone's kind of ad account to figure out maybe where they went wrong. My experience with boosted posts is that they do work pretty well if you've got them set up quite tightly. So you kind of know what you're doing when you set up the audiences. That's what we do. That's how we've been promoting these webinars, through email and through boosted posts, and they seem to have worked pretty effectively. But we've been doing it for long enough now. So if you do it for long enough, Facebook begins to understand what type of customers like to see your type of content and who clicks on, if you're selling something, who clicks on it and buys it, all those sorts of things. So Facebook does a lot of the learning for you. So it can go a little bit awry to begin with, and you can get a little bit disappointed, but over time that tends to get better, and you tend to get better at being able to kind of figure that out as well.
There's also a really good comment here, which I think is important to remember, and I've certainly spoken to you about, is around testimonials and the kind of guidelines from, I guess, the physiotherapy board, but also from the medical council about the testimonial. And I think that's important that if you're thinking about using testimonials, they can't be about you or your practice, as I understand it. It can be more broad about the concept of the consultation. So we could be talking about, I used telehealth and it went well. I think that is okay. But my understanding is, Mark Fulcher is the best telehealth doctor in the world. I think that sort of thing you kind of get in trouble with. So I think you do need to, if you're thinking about using testimonials, think about what rules might apply to you from a testimonial. So thanks, Kate, for that point. I think that's a good one. So you look at essentially one of the problems for all of us, and it's ironic because I spend a lot of my working life trying to prevent injuries. Essentially, there's no sport, and that means that there's not a lot of injury for most of us to see. Where should we be looking for our patients, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a big problem. I think it probably presents a few opportunities, and we need to be a little bit we might need to be a little bit creative or dig a little bit into our businesses. Often when a lot of your business comes from one particular source, you are blind to maybe the other sources of patients. So if I don't know how many sports related injuries might you see? 80% of your patients are all kind of sports related injuries. You don't have a good grasp of the other 20%. So now might be a good time to audit those and figure out, well, I'm actually getting a whole lot of workplace injuries, and actually they're getting referred from X location. Or so actually having a really thorough examination of that and figuring out, well, I'm now pretty strong here, and here if I take sports away. And then also look at who your referring partners are. So there might be partners in there that are less affected by sport disappearing than others. So I'd do a thorough examination. You might learn a whole load of stuff that you just never really knew, and it might open up some avenues for you. The other thing I'd say is people are still getting injured. So there's a lot of DIY going on. There's probably a lot of falling off ladders and sore backs and running around after kids and rolling your ankle. There are a lot of people walking and jogging now. I used to run around my neighborhood and be one of about 3 people doing it, but I now have to dodge a lot more people as I do that. And a lot of people sitting around all day with terrible home office setup. So just kind of thinking a little bit laterally, like how are people injuring themselves? So think about that, and then make sure you let people know that you're open, that if people are hurting themselves at home over this period, that there is an option to come and have an online consultation and kind of start your recovery. We could do some a home exercise program for you that can see you through 6 to 8 weeks, and then maybe you can come into the clinic and we can follow up after that. The other thing I'd say is, while there might not be a lot of new injuries from sport, a lot of people nurse injuries for a long time and never get it sorted. They're scared of missing out on next weekend sport, or they were too busy, or they just didn't think it was a big deal. So now's a really unique opportunity for all those people to actually get those small things figured out. There's actually this amazing opportunity for the next, I don't know how long organised sport's going to be away, but let's say no one plays organised sport for 6 months. There's this very unique opportunity that we could collectively kind of grab and say, we can now get fitter than we've ever been. We can now get more healthy than we've ever been. We can be less injury prone, less sore when we come back to organised sport, and kind of promote that to our local community. So go to the local rugby club, the local tennis club, the local netball club, and kind of talk to them about that and encourage them to still be going out and doing their exercise, but also getting those little niggles looked at.
Yeah, there's a really good example of that. I'm not sure whether it's online, but Matt Whalen is a physiotherapist in Wollongong, of all places. I'm not sure who's been to Wollongong. But he's come out the last few years to our injury prevention meeting, and he's made a stay fit program for footballers. So he's a pretty social media savvy guy. So I think he's probably posted there. But it's a really good example, I think, of a way to engage with your local referrer base, and maybe let them know that you're still alive and still wanting to see people.
Yeah, because the flip side of that is, if that doesn't happen, people kind of come back to organised sport, and you'll probably all, your eyes will light up now, but they'll come back unfit and more prone to get injuries. So maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe we just want to tell them to sit at home for the next 6 months.
Briefly, like it, Simon Grigor.
They can all come back and blow their knees out in the first few weeks. The only other thing, the one other thing I'd mention is, your previous patients present a great opportunity as well. So get in touch with them, send them an email, not just the patients that you're seeing at the moment, but all those patients that you've been seeing for the last year or so. Send them an email, put a post on Facebook, and encourage them to get in touch if they have any lingering issues. Offer to create them an at-home exercise program specific to them, because that could be really great for some of those patients that have ongoing issues that you're familiar with. So someone might have kind of some ongoing back problems, and they don't really know what they can do for the next few weeks. They go for the odd walk, but that kind of helps. Maybe you could help them out.
So just a reminder about the Q&A button. We've probably got another 5 or 10 minutes to ask your free marketing questions of Simon. So if you've got any, make sure you get them out there. So there's one here about what are some good ideas for getting GPs confident that you can still effectively treat musculoskeletal problems online? So he's asking specifically about GPs there, but I guess if we open it up to anyone.
Yeah, I guess people are going to be a little bit hesitant, like everyone was probably 3 weeks ago. Like a lot of physios and doctors probably didn't believe that they could do the consultations online. So convincing the patients is the next step. We've talked about testimonials, but I think testimonials can be really good. I think make them feel like now is a great time to act. Because even if they're just doing some exercises at home for a few weeks, they'll be more comfortable. They'll be further down their path to recovery, and their injury won't be getting worse, and they won't be as painful to live with. They won't be moaning about their knee every 5 seconds. So, yeah, starting now is probably really important. Speak to the fact that you have access to specialists like the team at Axis, and that by working with them, you can get an accurate diagnosis really quickly and begin your recovery now. So you're not waiting in discomfort for however long. And maybe you could even package that up. So talk about the fact that you can get fast, accurate diagnosis, access to specialist consultation if needed, access to imaging. It's all free with ACC. And right now you can get that done really quickly, because I know working with Axis that there's a great deal of availability. And that might always be true, the whole idea that you don't have to pay for that because of ACC, but patients don't necessarily know that. So if you package it up and talk about it in the right way, they feel like they're actually getting some kind of amazing service that actually they'd potentially be getting in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is maybe scare them a little bit, and not in a really negative way, but say that once the lockdown lifts, wait times are likely to increase. And are they really prepared to wait? So do they want to wait 6, 8 weeks, maybe more, before they see someone in a clinic? And then if that requires a referral to Axis or to someone else, do they then want to wait 4 weeks to see a specialist? Do they then want to wait 2 weeks to get an MRI scan? Like, that could all be done in a matter of days at the moment. And then they're going to be prioritised if they need surgery. They're going to be kind of further up the ladder than they would have been if they waited 6 to 8 weeks, which might actually end up being kind of 3, 4, 5 months worth of waiting.
Yeah, I think there's the whole thing around what should we be treating in this landscape. But my feeling is some of these patients have reasonably significant morbidity, and they're looking at prolonged periods away from work and their workplace, related to the injury and related to the current circumstance. So I think as long as you can be putting a safe plan in place, we should be thinking about that. The other thing, just with regard to GPs, I would encourage you to think about what is the problem that the GPs have. So they've, at the moment, I think most of you know that my wife is a GP, so I feel quite able to speak to that. One is that they are not seeing many patients. They're struggling because they just don't have the same workload in the same way that most of us are as well. So I think making sure that they know that you're not a threat to them, so you want to work collaboratively with them, I think that's a really important message. I think most of us who haven't used telehealth maybe don't understand that you can still do a good job. But I see every day patients working really well with physiotherapists, and I can see that the exercise prescription is really important. So maybe really reaching out to them and saying, look, we're still here. They may not want to see these patients is the other thing. So they're actively trying to keep their books open, some of them, so that they can deal with the other more significant problems. So understanding what the problem or what is the solution you can be offering to the GP, I think is really important. And I think that that's the same with other specialties as well. So sorry, Simon, I've become a marketer.
No, that's all right. I mean, you're well positioned to kind of talk about how that pitch might work.
Here's potentially a much more challenging question. So any tips for a sports massage therapist to keep clients engaged during this time? So just to put that in context, sports massage therapists aren't going to be able to do any current massage. So what are the ways where they might be able to market themselves, and can you think of any opportunities that they might have off the top of your head?
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, not understanding the scope of exactly what a sports massage therapist might do. So whether there's anything that can be offered outside of actually, I guess, physically being with a patient. Maybe.
I'm wondering whether there's an opportunity to do something around relaxation, or classes to show them how to use a roller, or how to use a hockey ball for trigger point release, or something like that. I don't know. And some of the, I guess maybe, is there an opportunity to sell some related products like, I don't know, like massage creams, massage rubs? Gee, I'm good at this.
Yeah. I can leave now if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't think we need you anymore.
No, those are all really good. Yeah, those are all really, really good points. Really.
Okay, so here's a comment from another massage therapist who has been doing exactly that. She's been hosting stretching sessions, mobility sessions, trigger point sessions. So it seems like maybe they weren't original thoughts. So.
But this was kind of one of my first points. It's
yeah, that's right.
Talk amongst your community.
Well, look, here's another really good one as well. Discount massage, pay now, book in when the lockdown moves.
Yep, that's a great one. I mean, that was a really common thing that happened with restaurants, right? They were like, we're not going to be open for a while, but can you buy a voucher so we've got some cash, and then you can use it at a later stage. So yeah, I really like that.
The other thing I was going to say is, I think another thing we all really need to be considering right now, and maybe most of you are, is, like I've spent the last week thinking about how I'm going to keep patients coming through the door and how to keep the business running. But if you're a massage therapist, and 1 month from now, are you suddenly going to want to massage patients? Are patients going to want to see you? So are you prepared? Do you have masks? Do you have a strategy for what you're going to do to keep your room clean? Do you have hand sanitizer? Do you have stuff to clean your plinth? Like what is it actually going to be like to operate as a massage therapist, physio, doctor? Whoa, what was that?
Sorry, I'm just trying to get someone's attention.
more beer, please. But what's it actually going to be like to be able to operate in the kind of post-lockdown landscape? It's going to be quite difficult. So again, there's an opportunity, I think, to ask a few questions. I think there's really an opportunity to share a few ideas. So if people have a few more questions, we'll answer them. Otherwise, Simon, is there anything else that you wanted to kind of say as a kind of passing shot?
Look, I think a lot of what we've talked about today is about short-term stuff, like stuff to do in the next few weeks to try to keep those patients coming in. But just over the next few weeks, as you kind of figure this stuff out, and as you figure out how this whole online thing works, and you realize actually it does work pretty well, just think to yourself, what can I take forward? What can I take forward when business kind of resumes to some kind of normalcy? And think about, are there opportunities to kind of continue doing this at a later stage? So what does my business look like when we are actually kind of back operating normally? So telehealth means your market is far less limited. So do you start to look at kind of marketing yourself more broadly? Do you target areas that are less serviced than they probably should be? Do you target particular specialities across the country or interest groups across the country? Could you do your Pilates classes to a broader audience online? Just remain open to opportunities, because I think it's an incredibly unique opportunity. And you don't get this opportunity often. I think we can often get stuck in I wouldn't say a rut, but we can get stuck in that this week's the same as last week and it's all working out pretty nicely. But actually, there could be some really cool opportunities that offer great opportunities for your business moving forward.
Yeah. Just another question that's just come in, Simon, is do you think that things like radio ads will be cheaper now? And do you know roughly what they might cost?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you exactly what they might cost, but yeah, I think you can probably drive a pretty hard bargain with your local radio salesperson. I think if anyone's calling a radio station asking to do some advertising right now, you'll get some pretty hungry salespeople.
Yeah.
And don't accept the first offer. Ask for free ads. Ask if you can get double that for the same price, or lock 30% off. Like, yeah, really push them and see what you can get.
Imagine you're on holiday in Asia and you're trying to buy a t-shirt.
yeah. Look, it kind of goes for everything at the moment, doesn't it? I think people are pretty hungry to make a sale. So
yeah. Yeah, look, I think that's been really good, Simon. So we might wrap it up there. I guess a reminder is, if you do have any other questions from Simon, potentially you could post them to the Facebook page. We're going to be doing some boosted posts, no doubt. I don't even know what that means, but we'll be trying to do them.
Yeah.
And look, I think the other thing is it's going to be tough. And if it's not working out, I think Simon's point of just finding something to evolve into, so that when we are seeing patients again and when we are up and running, that we've kind of got a plan B, and that hopefully we've all improved our practices and thought critically about how we do things. So look, thanks everyone for joining us, particularly you, Simon. That was really helpful.
Cool.
And just a reminder, I guess, about tomorrow at 1 o'clock, reviewing telehealth on another webinar there. And then finally, we're going to do something on the shoulder at least next week. So I look forward to you all joining us then. So thanks very much.
Cool. Thank you.